2023, it's your boy, Wild Wayne. To get y'all in the mood, man, I'm gonna pop you off with some Drake. Here comes that beat.
No matter how many rappers have come from this city, Drake is the one to put Toronto on the map.
For a long time, Toronto didn't have a sound.
No one expected all of this from Toronto.
Then Drake and 40 got together.
6, like, huh?
I peeked and I looked and I saw him like, all right, we got something.
Now we're just kicking in the doors and we're all making noise.
Hip-hop is in y'all DNA right now.
You cannot go to a club right now and they don't run Toronto artists. That's all they run.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club.
People talk about Toronto like it's a place in Brooklyn. Was Drake gonna be big, or was this gonna be a one-off here? Yo, Paul, you gotta hear this. You gotta hear this. We good. We winning. And we found out he was gonna be big.
It's Drake. He can rap over kicking the snare in his A1.
Let's go! Toronto wouldn't be in the conversation if Drake wasn't successful.
I already knew he was going to be the biggest star in the world, hands down.
I don't know if Drake loves the internet, but the internet loves him.
Good Lord. It's like 50 gifts in a row. He understands that the internet has been weaponized against his enemy. Drake is not going to back down. He's not scared to go.
That is the greatest thing I have ever heard in my life.
Heads up, heads up, heads up, heads up.
There's been very few hip-hop moguls.
He doesn't miss a beat.
He knows the power of his own brand.
He just won't let up off the gas.
For all the rappers who have an opportunity to become popular, they gotta thank Drake for that.
What keeps surprising me is his ability to break these records.
Drake has instilled in the younger generation a sense of courage.
He's number one.
Courage. Guts. You can do what you want to do and basically run the city.
It was just God playing.
Drake was very strategic from the very beginning. And it's only, again, in hindsight that you get to see how those steps, how important each of those little steps were.
Drake's path to stardom started way before he perched on top of the CN Tower. Getting there required a kind of methodical planning and strategic thinking he would use throughout his career. Early on, Drake knew that achieving his rap dreams would require the help of already established artists who have left their own marks on the Toronto music scene. One of the first people he turned to was Toronto hip-hop legend Socrates.
Drake was in a session where I was hanging out working with Boy Wonder, and Drake actually didn't even say anything. He just kind of hung in the corner and just watched and enjoyed the session. So I didn't even know who he was or why he was there, but we were always inviting. As we got more acquainted and we started sharing our love for each other's music and style, Drake literally just asked me for a favor. He said, I need a studio where I can record this song idea I have. I said, let me call my guy. Well, this is Noah at the time, before he renamed himself 40, who at that time was working almost solely for me. And I said, stick with 40. And they were sitting couch across from each other. I said, you guys got a lot in common, because they're both child actors. Because 40 was in a couple movies as a child as well. I was like, you guys got probably a lot more in common than you thought. And from there, that relationship that blossomed between them was absolutely brilliant.
I want the money in the car.
Once they connected, it was only a matter of 2-3 months. And here comes songs like Successful and these staples from the very beginning, where it's like, okay, it's gone.
Producer and songwriter Noah 40 Shebib is Drake's musical right-hand man.
I wanted the city to feel a part of this place, and I want it to be a very creative atmosphere. So when you walk through those doors, immediately, like, you feel comfortable being creative, and that creativity is accepted in this space.
He is the sonic architect behind the down-tempo, dark, cinematic sound that is the rapper's musical trademark, perhaps best heard on So Far Gone's Successful.
But as of late, a lot of been going sideways.
And the track Jungle from Drake's mixtape, If You're Reading This, It's Too Late.
Things I can't change are the reason you love me.
Drake and 40 have worked together since the early days of Drake's career, but 40 cemented his creative relationship with Drake as the recording and mixing engineer for So Far Gone. During these sessions, 40 saw how frustrated Drake was, trying to find the right sound from other producers, so 40 turned to their mutual love of 90s R&B, resulting in one of the biggest releases of 2009 and the start of one of the most important partnerships in hip-hop. Now one of Drake's closest friends, 40 not only continued to produce tracks for Drake, but also served as executive producer on all of Drake's albums.
Just so happened that these two took it to a higher level than we had ever done yet up until that point. I really wanted to be clear about, when speaking about the success of Drake and 40's partnership, 99% of it was on their own. But sometimes that little 1% helps to guide it or get the spark going. So you got a lot of fuel here, and then I got one match. You know what I mean? So call myself that match.
Socrates and Drake would work on many songs in those early years, but the song that is most often cited as connecting Toronto legends, both up and coming and established, was the remix of Divine Brown's Twist My Hair. It was also one of the first times Drake worked with career-long collaborator, producer Boy Wonder.
So when it was time to do the Twist My Hair, like the thinking about remixes that I could possibly do for the project, I kind of helped elements come together unknowingly, because here's this kid who's like hungry and wants to make his mark in music, and then here's this producer, Boy Wonder, who's basically on the come up.
Kingston, Jamaica-born, Toronto-raised Matthew Samuels, also known as Boy Wonder, is a 14-time Grammy-nominated record producer and key to Drake's global sound. Raised on dancehall, Boy Wonder started making beats at the age of 15 after his mother gifted him a keyboard and a friend introduced him to the beat-making program, Fruity Loops. He is introduced to Drake by mutual friend Dalton Tennant after winning the Battle of the Beatmakers contest 3 times in a row. Boy Wonder worked on 3 tracks for Drake's first official mixtape, Room for Improvement. He went on to produce dozens of tracks for the rapper, including breakthrough hit Best I Ever Had, as well as headlines, Forever, and Rihanna's Work. While Boy Wonder is an in-house producer for OVO Sound, he's not exclusive to the label. He's worked with global superstars like Eminem, Lana Del Rey, and Kendrick Lamar. In fact, in 2019 alone, he produced 3 of the 5 Grammy-nominated tracks for Best Rap Song, including the winner, God's Plan.
Boy Wonder just kind of put this really wicked beat together, and we made it happen. When I first heard Drake's verse on Twist My Hair, the remix, I loved it. It really represented where he was at the time. When he was saying, I ain't trying to force a U.S. flow. His father's an American, you know, half his family's American, so, you know, remember that. It's not a forced thing at all.
I did the Quincy Jones. I didn't touch a thing, I just touched the guys and said, hey, this might work. If anybody had made a choice to go in a different direction at any time throughout those pivotal moments, everything would be different right now. It wasn't like, yeah, we do this, we're gonna sign paperwork and lock it all in and have a 15-year plan. No. It was just an opportunity to do good shit.
This to me is probably the most iconic Degrassi picture, whenever I think of Degrassi at least. It has that like youthful innocence for sure within it. It's like Aubrey as the basketball, it's so funny.
Most people know me from being on Degrassi, which I spent 5-6 seasons playing Hazel.
In the early 2000s, Drake was best known for playing Jimmy on Degrassi, The Next Generation. The show is both a cult classic and a legitimate mainstream hit, even becoming popular in the US.
met him with afro and glasses and like legitimately trying to figure himself out in that regard. And he was still kind of quiet and shy. The more I got to know him, and then eventually he didn't have glasses, and then eventually he cuts his hair. Like, you know, he was slowly but surely figuring himself out, but the core of him was always there. And so my first day on set, I remember right away he told me that we had a mutual friend. And then he called me on the weekend. That's all I know. Even prior to them making Jimmy and Hazel a thing, I think they did that just because we were close. Because when I first got onto the show, I think he was dating all kinds of characters before he started dating my character. Just so Aubrey.
Oh my gosh, do I remember the first time I met Aubrey Graham? Most certainly. He claimed with Jimmy Fallon that the day that he came to do his audition with us, he was stoned.
I had this like really like tug of war moment where I actually did something that I probably shouldn't have done that starts with a W and ends with Eid.
If that's true, I don't know. What I saw was a very nervous young man. Even though he had no acting experience and he stumbled through his lines, maybe because he was stoned, I don't know. There was a naturalness, an ease to him, and a charm.
He would tell wardrobe, this is a brand I like. And they would try to listen, and I think that was probably the positive, is they knew that they didn't know like him. He had a very unique space that it was like he was being not only a representative for Black boys, he's being a representative for biracial boys. He's just being this representative.
Not only did Degrassi give Drake an opportunity to build name recognition, it also provided leverage for his musical goals.
The character of Jimmy Brooks' love of music started to evolve as we all became aware that Aubrey was pushing his career in that direction.
Win 2 days of studio time and record your own single.
It's exactly the kind of exposure we need right now.
Then we get the limos, the private jets, the blingity blang.
Actually, the writers were more interested in pursuing that. He had mixed feelings because part of, we're talking very early on in his career here, right? He hadn't released anything. So part of him did want to participate, but then he would second guess himself and say, well, maybe it's not right. He eventually did write a song actually for his character. It certainly was a give and take because the writers would not dare to put words into his mouth.
I remember specifically when he became Drake, and I had a friend that had met him, and she was like, I met the guy on your show. His name starts with a D, and I was like, oh no, there's nobody on our show that's name starts with a D. Finally, she was like, Drake. That was my first time understanding that he was evolving.
Drake was creating every opportunity he could to outgrow his status as a child actor. He curated a stable of talented collaborators, an essential element of success in hip-hop. In 2006, Drake released his first mixtape, Room for Improvement, working closely with Toronto producer Slacker the Beat Child.
I sent an artist friend of mine a beat. His name's Promise. He messaged me back and said, I didn't record on it, but somebody else did. I want you to check it out. When I played it back, it was Drake. I didn't know who Drake was at the time. You know, it was young Drake, and I was blown away. Like the moment I hit play, I was blown away. Like the lyrics just it captured me. It was like nothing I've heard before from a local artist. So I was excited about it, and apparently Drake was excited to work with me because he really loved that piece of music. The song he wrote to it was a song called The Thrill Is Gone. We arranged to do another session, and that's where it basically started. I remember the sessions like so vividly because it was so brand new. You know, like with anything, when anything is brand new, there's that certain excitement behind it. We didn't know how people would receive it. And truthfully, early on, people didn't actually appreciate it how we appreciated it. You know, it took some time for the world to appreciate what Drake had to offer. But, you know, when we're in the studio creating these songs and recording them, like we knew that they were great, it was great music.
After getting a taste with room for improvement, Drake was determined to establish himself as a legitimate rapper. His creative relationship with 40 blossomed as the two began to work on his follow-up mixtape, Comeback Season, out of a community recording facility where 40 is a youth program instructor.
I grew up in Remix Project, so where I started making a lot of my early music, started really socializing with a lot of the kids there, where I pretty much shaped my career.
The Remix Project, it's a place where left brain thinking is encouraged. And the staff that are there are young people themselves and have kind of found their own ways in these unconventional routes to success.
Okay, so what exactly is happening in Toronto? Why is it that so many incredible artists are coming from your town? Well, it would be the work of the Remix Project.
The Remix Project was founded to help underserved communities succeed in the creative arts. It also has played a key role in introducing Drake to those now closest to him. Initially launched under the name Inner City Visions, the program began as a space to learn the 4 elements of hip-hop: DJing, graffiti art, battle rapping, and breakdancing.
Oh, the Remix Project. Yeah, I love what y'all do.
Today, the Remix Project is a training institute for youth in 3 fields: business arts, creative arts, and recording arts. Over the last 20 years, Remix has shaped the Toronto creative community with dozens of breakout graduates like producer Wonder Girl and Juno Award-winning artist Jessie Reyes.
The Remix Project changed my life so much. They offer mentorship and they offer space and they encourage collaboration.
Drake and many of his core team have ties to Remix. Drake's manager and former tour DJ, Future the Prince, first met Drake while part of Remix's DJ program in 2007. Daniel Daly of OVO Sounds Division was the recording arts leader at Remix, where Division recorded their first album. Most importantly to the Drake story, it's where Drake and Remix recording arts instructor Noah 40 Shebib recorded the mixtape Comeback Season, one of 2 Drake releases recorded at the Remix studio. It's been over 10 years since those mixtapes were recorded, but Drake and members of OVO continue to support the organization as both advisors and partners of Remix's new headquarters in Toronto.
So I was lucky enough to work there for a number of years, and during that time I met some of the most talented young people that I've ever met. So the way that the Remix Project worked was that from 3 to 9 was the time that young people would come in to do the program.
Besides the students being able to benefit from using real studio equipment, it was also open to the public after hours. Not for everybody, but for the people who were in the know.
After 9 o'clock, we would all be leaving and saying goodbye, and 40 would be getting set up for his next session, and that next session would be with Drake. 40
was a teacher there, but then we used to use the studio after hours to record. He'd be in there mixing our stuff, and then that's when we used to start bumping into him.
And that's part of where 40 got this nickname, which was for 40 days and 40 nights. He wouldn't sleep. We were like, when do you sleep?
But that's when we started seeing the union, you know what I'm saying?
I think he kind of knew and saw where he was supposed to be from the very beginning, and was probably one of the first rappers, I want to say, in the city who put together a team first that helped, you know, push his brand and push his image.
His strategy, it always seems that it's surrounded around connection, and not just a connection of who you know and who you can kind of get to, but the people who are going to really amplify what it is he's trying to do.
His first, I guess you could say, major single in Toronto was with Trey Songz, who at the time was an established, you know, R&B singer. So by doing that, he basically proved to people that, like, he's not just here for, like, you know, shits and giggles. He's here to, you know, basically solidify himself and show that he's got relationships in the industry and he can collaborate with, you know, artists who are known on an international level.
There was that perception of, you know, he's this sort of dweeby looking kid or dweeby kid on Degrassi, and now he's trying to make it as a rapper.
My first impression was probably the same as a lot of other people's first impression. It was like, oh, this guy thinks he's a rapper now? I remember distinctly one day playing his record, Do What You Do. He was doing something that hadn't been done here, and he was doing it in a way that hadn't been done here. And it wasn't on some, please America, accept me. It was on some, I'm dope, I'm working with people who I want to work with, mostly Canadians, but a few Americans, and it's on par, if not better, than the things that people already like, so let me put it into the marketplace and see what happens.
Drake also never stopped seeking advice during those formative years. He turned to radio DJ Mastermind, who helped set him off towards his next big challenge.
I bet you he hates this story. I get this call, there's this guy, he's on Degrassi, he's an actor, he wants to become a rapper, and he would love to sit with you and pick your brain. My advice has never wavered in any different way. I always say, don't worry about Canada. They don't care about this culture in this country. Especially in 2006, I said, go to the States, be a star, like become a star, and they'll eventually mess with you. And it's almost like that's exactly what he did.
Americans did start to pay attention. By making connections with some key players who took a liking to his flow, Drake set himself up to break in a way no Canadian had ever done before.
And the thing that jumped out to me about him was, I was like, damn, he rapped this good and he's so clear, he speaks so well, like this shit sounds eloquent.